You've noticed it, haven't you? The person at work who talks the loudest gets the promotion, while the one with actual expertise gets ignored. The influencer with zero credentials gets millions of followers, while the professor who spent decades mastering their field speaks to empty lecture halls. The politician who promises impossible dreams wins elections, while the one offering realistic solutions gets called boring. Something fundamental has shifted in our world, and if you're feeling crazy for noticing it, you're not alone. You're just awake in a society that rewards sleep. Socrates saw this coming 2,400 years ago. He watched Athens, the birthplace of democracy, the crown jewel of civilization, slowly poison itself with the same disease we're dying from today. He watched his society elevate idiots, celebrate ignorance, and punish anyone who dared to think critically. And when he tried to warn them, when he tried to wake people up from their comfortable delusions, they killed him for it. They literally gave him hemlock and made him drink it because the truth he spoke was too uncomfortable for their fragile egos to handle. That's how terrified societies become when you threaten their addiction to stupidity. But here's what you need to understand. This isn't an accident. This isn't some unfortunate side effect of progress or technology or social media. This is a feature, not a bug. Your society is designed to reward stupidity because intelligent people ask dangerous questions. Intelligent people threaten power structures. Intelligent people can't be controlled as easily as those who never learn to think for themselves. So the system does what every system does when threatened. It adapts. It creates incentives that punish critical thinking and reward blind obedience disguised as confidence. Let me show you exactly how this works. Think about the last time you were in a meeting or a classroom or any group setting where someone asked a genuinely thoughtful question. Not a question designed to show off or score points, but a real question that challenged the underlying assumptions everyone was operating from. What happened? If you're honest, you'll remember the uncomfortable silence, the shifting eyes, the subtle social punishment that followed. Maybe someone made a joke to break the tension. Maybe the authority figure dismissed it with a non-answer and moved on quickly. Maybe the person who asked got labeled as difficult or overthinking or not a team player. Now think about what happens when someone in that same setting makes a confident but completely uninformed statement. When they speak with absolute certainty about something they clearly don't understand. When they offer a simple solution to a complex problem that anyone with basic knowledge knows won't work. What happens then? They get nodded at. They get respect. They get called decisive and strong and leadership material. Because in a society that rewards stupidity, confidence without competence is valued more than competence without arrogance. Socrates called this the problem of the unexamined life. He said the unexamined life is not worth living, but what he really meant was that most people are terrified of examination. They're terrified of looking too closely at their own beliefs, their own assumptions, their own comfortable illusions about how the world works. Because once you start examining, once you start questioning, once you start thinking critically, you can't go back. You can't unknow what you've learned. You can't return to the blissful ignorance that makes social acceptance so easy. And that's the key to understanding why your society punishes intelligence. It's not that people hate smart people. It's that smart people remind everyone else of what they're avoiding. Every time you ask a thoughtful question, you're implicitly suggesting that maybe the easy answers everyone else accepted aren't good enough. Every time you point out a logical inconsistency, you're threatening the comfortable narrative that lets people sleep at night. Every time you demonstrate actual expertise, you're making everyone who didn't bother to learn feel inadequate. So they do what humans have always done when confronted with uncomfortable truths. They shoot the messenger. They don't engage with your arguments because they can't. Instead, they attack your tone, your motives, your personality. They call you elitist or pretentious or out of touch. They accuse you of overthinking or being negative or not being fun at parties. Anything to avoid actually engaging with the substance of what you're saying. This is why Socrates was so dangerous to Athens. He didn't just have different opinions, he had a method. The Socratic method, which you've probably heard of but maybe never understood the revolutionary power of. It wasn't about winning arguments or showing off how smart he was. It was about asking questions that forced people to examine their own beliefs. Simple questions. Innocent questions. Questions like, What do you mean by that? How do you know that's true? What evidence supports your position? Can you think of any exceptions to that rule? These questions sound harmless. They sound like the basics of any rational conversation. But in a society built on unexamined assumptions, they're weapons of mass destruction. Because once you start asking these questions, once you really start thinking about what you believe and why you believe it, most of what you thought you knew starts falling apart. And that's terrifying. That's destabilizing. That's why they killed him. But here's where it gets really dark. Here's where you need to pay attention, because this is happening to you right now, today, in ways you might not even recognize. The punishment for intelligence in modern society isn't as dramatic as hemlock. It's much more subtle and in some ways much more effective. It's social death instead of physical death. It's professional stagnation instead of execution. It's the slow erosion of your spirit as you watch less qualified people succeed, while you're told you're too intense or too analytical or too difficult. You see it everywhere once you know what to look for. The job interview where you give a nuanced answer to a complex question and don't get the position because the interviewer wanted someone who could communicate more simply. Translation: someone who wouldn't make them feel stupid. The relationship where your partner accuses you of ruining everything by always analyzing instead of just feeling. Translation: your thinking makes them uncomfortable with their own lack of thinking. The family gathering where you're told to stop being so serious and just enjoy yourself. Translation: your awareness of problems everyone else is ignoring is killing the mood. This is the tax you pay for consciousness in an unconscious world. This is the price of vision in a society of the blind. And the cruelest part is that the society makes you feel like something is wrong with you. Like you're the problem. Like if you could just be more normal, more average, more willing to accept things at face value, everything would be easier. And they're right. Everything would be easier. That's the whole point. Stupidity is easy. Ignorance is comfortable. Not asking questions means never having to face uncomfortable answers. Going along with whatever everyone else believes means automatic social acceptance. Confusing confidence with competence means you never have to do the hard work of actually becoming competent. But here's what Socrates understood that most people never will. Easy and good are not the same thing. Comfortable and true are not the same thing. Popular and right are not the same thing. And a life built on easy comforts and popular delusions might be pleasant in the short term, but it's not a human life. It's an animal life. It's existence without essence. It's breathing without being. You know this already. You've felt it. That's why you're still watching. That's why something in you resonates with what I'm saying, even though every social incentive you've ever received tells you to dismiss it and move on. Because there's a part of you that knows the emperor has no clothes. There's a part of you that sees the stupidity being rewarded and the intelligence being punished, and recognizes that this is insane. This is backwards. This is exactly what Socrates warned about before they killed him for the warning. So what do? How do you live in a society that punishes the very thing that makes you valuable? How do you maintain your intelligence, your curiosity, your commitment to truth in a world that actively selects against those qualities? First, you need to understand that you're not crazy. The gaslighting is real. When everyone around you seems fine with obvious nonsense, when you're the only one asking questions that desperately need to be asked, when you're made to feel like the problem for noticing problems, you need to remember that this is exactly what happened in Athens. The society was wrong. Socrates was right. They killed him anyway. Your sanity doesn't depend on external validation. It depends on your commitment to truth, regardless of social consequences. Second, you need to find your people. Socrates had his students. He had the few who were willing to question alongside him. You need to find those people in your life, not the ones who agree with everything you say, but the ones who are willing to think deeply, question seriously, and value truth over comfort. These people are rare. They're scattered, but they exist, and finding even one of them is worth more than the approval of 1,000 idiots. Third, you need to develop what I call selective sovereignty. You can't fight every battle. You can't correct every stupid statement. You can't challenge every unexamined assumption you encounter. That way lies madness and social suicide. You need to choose wisely where you spend your intellectual energy. Some situations require you to play the game, to code switch, to let the idiots think they won. Some situations are worth the cost of speaking truth. The wisdom is knowing the difference. But here's what you cannot do. You cannot dumb yourself down permanently. You cannot amputate your intelligence to fit in. You cannot pretend that obvious problems don't exist just because acknowledging them makes other people uncomfortable. Because if you do that, if you sacrifice your capacity for critical thought on the altar of social acceptance, you're not just betraying yourself. You're betraying everyone who comes after you. You're validating the system that rewards stupidity. You're proving that the punishment works. Socrates chose death over dishonesty. He was given the option to escape. He was offered deals. He could have apologized, recanted, toned it down, played along. He refused every compromise because he understood something essential. Your integrity is not negotiable. Your commitment to truth is not up for sale. And a life lived in betrayal of your own intelligence is not a life worth living. Now, I'm not suggesting you need to die for your principles. I'm not suggesting you need to make yourself a martyr. But I am suggesting that there's a middle path between martyrdom and surrender. There's a way to maintain your intelligence while navigating a stupid world. There's a way to be Socratic in your private life while being strategic in your public life. This requires something most people never develop, the ability to live with cognitive dissonance, not the bad kind, where you hold contradictory beliefs and lie to yourself about it. The good kind, where you understand that the game is rigged, you see it clearly, and you play it anyway while maintaining your inner truth. You smile at the boss who's an idiot while keeping your competence sharp. You nod at the family member spouting nonsense while preserving your own clarity. You let the confident fool win the argument in public while knowing in private that you were right. This isn't weakness. This is survival. This is how you stay sane in an insane world. This is how you keep your intelligence alive in a society designed to kill it. Because here's what you need to understand. The game is not about convincing idiots they're idiots. They'll never accept it. The game is about preserving enough intelligent people to keep civilization from completely collapsing. And it is collapsing. That's not hyperbole. That's not pessimism. That's observation. Every institution that rewards stupidity over intelligence is in decline. Every society that punishes critical thinking is rotting from within. Every culture that celebrates confidence without competence is building on sand. Socrates saw Athens fall. We're watching the same pattern play out on a global scale. But here's the thing about collapse: it creates opportunity. When the old systems fail, when the rewards for stupidity stop paying out, when reality finally catches up with delusion, there's a moment, a window, where intelligence becomes valuable again because it's the only thing that can solve the problem stupidity created. And if you've maintained your capacity to think, to question, to see clearly while everyone else was sleepwalking through comfortable lies, you'll be needed. Not popular, not celebrated, not rewarded in the ways stupid people are rewarded, but needed, essential, irreplaceable. Because when everything is falling apart, suddenly the person who was asking uncomfortable questions looks prophetic instead of annoying. The person who refused to accept easy answers looks wise instead of difficult. The person who maintained their intelligence while everyone else dulled theirs becomes the most valuable person in the room. This is what Socrates knew. This is why his students remembered him. This is why we're still talking about him 2,400 years later, while the people who killed him are forgotten. Not because he won in his lifetime. He died. He lost. They beat him. But history proved him right. Time vindicated his commitment to truth. And the students he influenced went on to build the philosophical foundations of Western civilization. You might not get that kind of historical vindication. You might not be remembered at all. But that's not the point. The point is that your intelligence matters. Your questions matter. Your refusal to accept comfortable stupidity matters. Not because it will make you popular or successful or happy in the conventional sense, but because it's true. And truth has its own value independent of social reward. So when you're sitting in that meeting and the loudest idiot gets promoted, remember Socrates. When you're watching the confident fraud accumulate followers while the actual expert gets ignored, remember Athens. When you're being socially punished for asking questions that need to be asked, remember that this is the tax you pay for consciousness, and it's worth it. Because here's the final truth, the one that makes all of this bearable, the one that Socrates understood when he drank the hemlock. You only get one life, one brief window of consciousness in an unconscious universe, and you can spend that life seeking truth and thinking deeply and asking hard questions, or you can spend it comfortable and accepted and fundamentally asleep. But you can't do both. The society will always offer you that trade. Comfort for consciousness, acceptance for authenticity, success for surrender. And most people take it. Most people choose the easy path of rewarded stupidity over the hard path of punished intelligence. That's why most people are miserable in ways they can't even name. That's why most people feel empty even when they're succeeding by society's standards. That's why most people reach the end of their lives and realize they never really lived. You don't have to be most people. You can choose differently. You can decide that your intelligence matters more than their approval. You can commit to truth even when it costs you. You can ask questions even when it makes people uncomfortable. You can refuse to dumb yourself down even when dumbing down would make everything easier. And yes, it will be hard. Yes, you will pay prices. Yes, you will watch idiots succeed while you struggle. But you will be awake. You will be alive. You will be human in the fullest sense of the word. And when you're old and looking back on your life, you won't have to wonder what you could have been if you'd been brave enough to think. That's the choice Socrates faced. That's the choice you face. That's the choice every thinking person faces in every era of human history. And the fact that you're still here, still watching, still willing to consider ideas that challenge everything your society tells you, means you've already made your choice. You just need to commit to it. You need to stop apologizing for your intelligence. Stop dimming your light to make others comfortable. Stop pretending that the emperor's clothes are beautiful when you can clearly see he's naked. The world needs intelligent people more than ever. Not people with high IQ scores or advanced degrees or fancy credentials. People who are willing to think. People who are willing to question. People who are willing to value truth over comfort. People like Socrates. People like you. So the next time someone makes you feel bad for being too analytical or too intense or too serious, remember this. They're not critiquing you. They're protecting themselves. From the truth you represent. From the questions they're afraid to ask. From the examined life they're too scared to live. And when you're tempted to give up, to play dumb, to stop asking questions because it's too costly, remember what Socrates said at his trial. He could have saved his life with a simple apology. Instead, he told them that the unexamined life is not worth living. He chose death over dishonesty. Not because he wanted to die, but because he understood that some things are more important than survival. Your intelligence is one of those things. Your commitment to truth is one of those things. Your refusal to participate in collective delusion is one of those things. These are not luxuries you can afford to trade for comfort. These are essentials. These are what make you human instead of just another animal responding to stimuli. This is why society rewards stupidity and punishes intelligence. Because intelligent people are dangerous. They ask questions that threaten power. They see through lies that keep systems running. They refuse to accept what everyone else accepts. And that makes them impossible to control. But it also makes them free. It also makes them alive. It also makes them the only hope for a world drowning in confident idiots who mistake their ignorance for wisdom. Socrates knew this. Athens killed him anyway. History proved him right. You know this. Your society is punishing you anyway. History will prove you right too. The question is whether you can live with being right while being treated like you're wrong. Whether you can maintain your intelligence while surrounded by rewarded stupidity. Whether you can stay awake in a world that's desperate for you to sleep. I think you can. I think that's why you're here. I think there's something in you that knows the truth matters more than the comfort of pretending otherwise. And I think you're ready to stop apologizing for being intelligent in a society that celebrates stupidity. If you identified with this, if you felt any change while watching, then you need to subscribe, because we're just getting started. Click the like button if you're tired of pretending that idiots are geniuses. Leave a comment and tell me where you've seen intelligence punished in your own life. And stick around because in the next video we'll delve into why your mind isn't yours anymore, the silent death of authentic thinking. Until then, stay sovereign, stay selective, stay awake.